Well, good morning, folks. So nice to have you here on this very beautiful day. It seems the past couple of weeks we've had parables and then we've had other stories inside the gospel. And last week and this week kind of is featuring on the sense of our faith and where we are in our faith. Last week, if we remember the gospel, it was Jesus praying and then his apostles being in a boat fishing. A storm comes up and batters them. And they finally see Jesus. Jesus comes to them on the fourth watch. You know, not the earlier watches. He lets them go through a lot of that storm before he comes to them in that fourth watch. And in that fourth watch he comes, and they see what they think is a ghost, but it's Jesus. He calls out to them, and Peter, with such great bravado and such guts inside him, says, "Lord, let me come out and greet you." He must have tremendous faith to do that. So he gets out there, or an absolute lack of common sense, especially with a storm going on in the sea. But he goes out there and he walks on the water. What tremendous faith. But then the wind hits him, and maybe the sea spray hits him, and all of a sudden, what's he start to do? Doubt, and then he sinks. But Jesus reaches out and saves him at that point. And so we hear inside that gospel that, Jesus, in our faith, Jesus isn't always going to come to us immediately when we pray to him and answer our prayers. It may be for some reason that he's going to let us wait inside there. That's one way of looking inside our faith. We develop it over time, but we have to remember, faith isn't on our terms. Faith is on Jesus' terms. And he loves us, and we should always trust that he's going to take care of us. Now, it might not always be the way we want it, but if it's always the way he wants it, then it's going to be the best way for us, isn't it? And that's the great faith that we develop over time. But what we take from that is that Jesus meets us where we are in our faith, and he brings us a little bit closer. Shades of maybe Pope Francis, who talks about our church being a church, in which we're to care for people, like a trauma hospital. Meet people where they are, bring them a little closer to the Lord, and they'll get there eventually. What a great idea that is. So we hear that sense of, in terms of our faith, we learn, all right, maybe God's not going to answer us right off the bat. Maybe we need to have, faith in him that he's going to answer the prayer in the way that we need that inside there. Then we come to today's gospel, and we have this story of this very brash woman who was not Jewish herself, and she goes off there, and she asks Jesus to heal. And Jesus kind of pretty much says no, and then the next thing he's comparing her to dogs, right? And you know what? Jesus then relents. And so what we hear inside here is that second part inside the measure of faith. With faith, you have to be confident. You got to have great confidence. The God created you, the God who loves you, the God you serve is going to be with you in all things and nothing less. And it reminds us that we are called to be persistent. Keep on asking. Continue to bombard heaven with your prayers. Remember that parable he told not long ago when he was talking about the woman who goes before the judge and asks something that she had no right to have? But he realizes if she keeps on coming back and coming back, you ever meet any of those people in your life? What do you eventually do? Any retail person will say, you eventually cave in and give them what they want. Well, the moral there is be persistent and you'll get what you want. But in faith, we have to be persistent as well. The more persistent we are, the more likely it is going to come about. How great is the gift that God gives us in faith and that we're allowed to have. And the other thing I want us all to remember is this. Faith is born out of our prayer life. It is so absolutely essential that we are prayerful people. And not prayerful people once in a while, but the prayer is something that really saturates the whole day with us. So in other words, Jesus becomes a living part of our day. They were talking to him to the whole day. Thank you for this, Lord. Thank you for that, Lord. Oh, Lord, help me not to tell that person what I think of them. It wouldn't be a smart thing, Lord. We both know that. But, to invite him into our lives in that way, at the end of the day, to take him and say, I'm going to look over today and see how I did well today with you, where I let you in my life, and where maybe I ignored you, where you were inviting me into your life. These are the very things that make us grow closer in union to God. These are the things that make us holy people. And these are the things that remind us that we are called to something great. And that something great is to make this church a church for the poor.